right. So, podcasting 2.0 is something that I kind of recently started playing around with. I have a little podcast of my own, and I was actually really fascinated and didn't fully understand exactly how it worked until I just did it, right? Did it myself. So today, I want everybody in the room to have that experience of like how it actually works, how to get it set up, and we're going to talk kind of everything in between as well. So I'll let Jose introduce himself here.
Hey, thanks, Michael. What's going on, everyone? Sounds like I'm doing an intro to a pod. Appreciate y'all. I just want to say I was at the very first Austin Bitcoin Club, and it's come a long way, and it's amazing to see it here. And shout out to the Commons and everybody that's involved. Car out here in front. But I'm Jose Burgos. I go by Deathbed online. I wouldn't really say it's a NIM because I'm here and I'm showing my face, but you guys get it. And I host the show Talking in Bits. I've been doing that for about 2 years now.
Awesome podcast.
Yeah, they appreciate it. I like to not call it a podcast and call it a show, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I run Talking in Bits. I have a history in podcasting. This is my third podcasting, and I think it's very unique what Value for Value, which we're about to talk about here, opened up for this podcast and why it works and why we're getting such good traction and people love the show. I also work for Unchained Capital during the day job and love Unchained and everything that we're doing there. So that's a little bit about me. We're going to share here. I'm going to try to talk this conversation, and I came into podcasting 2.0. Shout out to Adam Curry and Dave Jones, by the way, for setting this whole thing and making sure that we were able to do many things with this, what we're about to talk about. But they're the originators of this. And back in 2018, when I set up my first Lightning node, I got wind of this, and I learned that I didn't need to rely on the legacy outlets, right? I didn't need to rely on the Spotifys of the world, the Apples of the world, because those legacy outlets started moving towards sort of like the music industry, towards like an advertisement revenue model where you're either part of the big club and they show your stuff to everybody, or you're somebody like me where they drown you down to the ground and nobody will ever find your show. So I started getting interested in that. And a lot of the stuff I'm about to talk about here is basically my rabbit hole through podcasting 2.0 and Value for Value. I'm going to show you guys the original way of setting up. It actually still works to this day. You can still do it this way. And then, Dave Jones kind of open sourced the API to allow any app developer and any podcast to take advantage of this. And now we got apps like Fountain that basically make it much easier to be able to streamline and be able to get online. So am I sharing my screen already? Are we good?
Yeah, we need to reconnect it to the projector here. I'm not sure why it's not turned on, but in the meantime, while we're figuring that out, because we want you guys to actually kind of see it and follow us here. Jose, he's been doing some really cool stuff. I saw he's like trailblazing the space in a way. Like there are certain people that are not only just saying, okay, yeah, I'm just like going to connect my podcast to Podcasting 2.0 and I'm going to earn some sats. There is some really interesting way to like get your listeners engaged. You can actually you can literally like pay your listeners to listen to your podcast. Like you can sponsor yourself and pay them sats. You can do a million other things. You can stream different ways that we'll get into later. So I just want to like give you a little more props because I've seen you do some cool stuff and you're kind of like cutting edge on how we can like reimagine podcasting amongst other things. So.
Yeah. So appreciate the kind words, Michael. So there's a lot of trailblazers here. We got Kevin in the house as well. We got some trailblazers in the house that are really doing big things, inspirational to me as well. Without being able to show you, so the core concept here, what Dave Jones and Adam Curry kind of unlocked was, your RSS feed, which is real simple syndication, I believe is what it is. And that's basically all the information for your podcast. That's where you can find the podcast, the cover arts, the episodes, the audio files, all that. What they found out is that you can plug in what they call a value block, which is a little piece of XML code that sits on the top of that RSS feed. Got it. Beautiful. So should I stop sharing this? And
I know where the echo is coming from. I think it's coming from that thing up there.
Cool. Are we good? Nah, we're doing great. Yeah. We, as you can see, we're passionate about getting this perfectly set up.
Perfect. All right, let's go.
So I sound good. So I don't sound like I'm shrilling anybody here. All right. So The old school way, right? So this is the original way when I got jumped on. So I don't know where these links will live, but you could follow me at Deathbed, reach out to me in my DMs. This is called podcasterwallet.com, and this is basically where you onboard your already existing podcast. You could do Transistor. Most people do Anchor. Anchor is a more convenient way to get your podcast anywhere. Once you get that, you kind of fill out this form here, and for the sake of time, I won't fill it out in real time. But what this is going to do is it's going to find your podcast. You're going to claim your podcast with your email. And then from there, when you go through that workflow, you're basically going to end up here, right? And if I could zoom in a little bit here, I will, right? And this is that little bit of code that I wanted to, that I said, this is the value block. This is what lives on top of your RSS feed. And therefore, Lightning nodes and Lightning apps that are looking for this block can actually take action on this block and do some of the things we're going to talk about later. So if you live here, this is my older podcast. This is the Jose Burgos podcast. You see some information here. You see my pub key, which is here for my node. It lives there. You can see basically the information that these apps are looking for. I won't get too deep into the weeds there. And then later, in a little bit, we're going to talk about splits. And as you can see here, splits are basically exactly what it sounds. I could get Michael and I could give him half my show because we're co-hosts and we don't need to sign a contract or anything like that. He knows that when 100 come in, he gets 50, I get 50 of whatever comes in. So that's kind of what that looks like in the background. And this is the older way, like I said, to do this. As you can see, the page is very basic. I talked to David Jones direct, and he admittedly said that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. But what's really bullish is that he's open sourced this, and a lot of app developers are kind of, and I'll show you here in the next slide here, this is all the apps right now that are actually supporting podcasting 2.0. I'm a little bit biased towards Fountain, and we'll explain why in a little bit here. But I wanted to make clear, in Bitcoin, we don't want to centralize anything. And in podcasting 2.0, we also don't want to centralize anything. So it's very important to just try all these apps. They here in the little description, they kind of show you what it is that they offer when it comes to the value block and what's inserted in there. And you guys can check those out on your own. That's the older way. It was a little bit tedious. The difficulty that I had as a creator very early on is that in order for somebody to stream me some sats or show me some value, you needed to be technically savvy. You needed to know how to set up a Lightning node. You needed to be, and this is 2018, so now we have like plug and play nodes and stuff like that. But back then it was a little bit more terminal code and starting to build out this code. So that's very important there. So now, since it's open source, all these developers have said, hey, they put their brain together, they put their resources together. How can we onboard more people as fast as possible to not only put their podcast on here, but as a listener, how can we get you a wallet so that you can support your favorite show, right? And the way I like to think about this is, why would you send sats to somebody? Well, if you paid $14.99 for Spotify, right, which most of us, maybe some of us do, or YouTube Music or any of that stuff, you got to understand that your favorite show is not getting any of that or very little of that. I mean, you can listen to these shows for hours on end, and they could get a fraction of that. They could get a penny of it, maybe even less than that. Now, you can actually take that $15 and you can start diversing that into your favorite shows and really keep those shows afloat, keep the lights on, as they like to say, and just kind of give a feedback mechanism here, right? Because me as a creator, when I see sats coming in, it's cool, I'm getting sats, but it's also a voting system, right? It's a way for my listeners to basically tell me, hey, I love it, keep it going. And a lot of listeners actually do tell you through Boost, which we'll talk about here soon.
They value you. That's the value for value. He provides value, they value that, they want to give something back so that he keeps providing that value. That's Excellent. The value for value, right? And also maybe we can take just real quick, a little step back. Whenever I first set up my podcast, I was like, I didn't even know how the RSS feed worked. I'm like, what do I do? Like, it turns out, I mean, I guess you can host your own website and then do your own thing. But what I did, I just used like RSS.com. I don't know if it's good or bad. You can use Anchor or whatever. And you can like set up your own RSS feed and then you post like different episodes and so on to that. But all it is like just an email address. Yep. And then it just like confirms, you verify your email. And then what he said, whenever you put your email into the podcast index or podcast wallet, it's going to be like, hey, is this your wallet? Like, do you actually own this podcast? It'll send me, or it'll send, I'm hearing that echo now again. Yeah. But it'll send him a verification, and then he can claim that podcast so that, on the Podcasting 2.0, on the Lightning Network.
Yeah. So the RSS feed hosts an XML file. The RSS feed, as Michael just said, is basically where all the information, the email that's associated with. So there is one email, y'all. You can't just put any email in there and put like a new Proton. Whatever it is, you set up that RSS feed is the email you're going to need to claim your podcast. So that's very important, but that's where everything lives. And a lot of these words come from old radio broadcast, lingo. So syndication, it's one of those things where like if a radio station got syndicated, that basically meant that it was like nationwide and it wasn't just a local market. So an RSS feed has existed for pretty much, I wouldn't say ever, but for a very long time. The pioneering move is inserting that value block on top of that RSS feed, that XML file. That's the real game changer here. So that was the old, I like to say old, it's not old, it's just the more, non-intuitive way of doing it. So like I'll go through podcasting 2.0 here. So this is Fountain. I love Fountain. A lot of people here have used Fountain. It's one of the things, it's the best way to get onboarded here. If you haven't checked out Fountain, check it out. Because as Michael said a little while ago, for listening to your favorite podcast, you actually get some sats coming in. And then, you could do some really cool stuff with that here. So if you see here, you get a wallet, and you can see the shows you support. You can see the Talking in Bits wallet is there. And those are the strats, those are the sats, those are the boosts, that's everything that's above there. Real quickly, though, when you first get started, if you don't want to do it the old way, you can download Fountain, and then I think let's just go to the Bitcoin standard here. Right, so if your podcast is not 2.0 enabled, Fountain has made it easy for you to be able to get on as fast as possible. So you would hit this little lightning logo, and what that's going to do now, as you can see here, is because Safety doesn't have his podcast 2.0. Come on, Safety. Like, what's going on here? We need to make this happen here. You can basically claim your podcast. And that same process that I showed you on the first screen, which is the email and the RSS feed, Fountain is going to help you go through that, right? And then they're going to get you onboarded. They're going to get your podcast a wallet, and you're going to be able to do some really cool stuff with that. So that's how you onboard with Fountain. Now you can see night and day that it's as easy as downloading this app, getting a Fountain account, and you're 2.0 enabled. Then you can just start telling your friends that, hey, check me out, streaming some sats because you're good.
And that's the beauty. Like
right.
that, it's not so much that this stuff doesn't work and it's accessible, but it's like making it so easy to get set up with it that you can just do the same thing you're already doing as a podcaster, and now you get sats instead. Or, right. Well, it's just sats in general.
It allows you as a creator, it allows the listeners to show you love and value, but it allows you, the creator, to focus on your art, right? Because when I was doing the 2018 podcast, back then, like, I was trying to chase ad revenue, right? Like, I was trying to, I need to keep the lights on. I mean, these lights are expensive, the cameras are expensive, my setup is expensive. So I got lulled into the trick where thinking that I needed to cape, or I needed to do some type of tactic to try to get some sponsors and try to do all this, what I call mumbo jumbo and voodoo, when I really couldn't compete with the Joe Rogans of the world. It's impossible to do so at this stage. So this opened up an arena where now I could focus on my show, and I don't need to worry about an ad revenue model, because if people really dig it and people really like it, they're gonna show me firsthand, right? And they don't have to pay PayPal fees and all that other stuff, which is another benefit of this. Real quickly, the cool stuff you can do here. So splits, right? Back in the music industry days, and even in early podcasting, if you had an executive producer, if you have a shout out to Carr for TFTC producing amazing stuff. But if you had Carr, right, you have a producer doing the show. Before it was you need to get a lawyer, pen and contract. You need to really make this Carr gets X amount of sats or whatever, right? So now I can literally just tap here like I showed y'all, and you see my split. So I decided, and a lot of other Bitcoin podcasters have decided, that we automatically want to send some sats over to OpenSats, right? Which is supporting our favorite, open source software. So as you can see, every single one of my episodes, whether they have a guest on it or not, they have a split for me, and I'm the person at the top. And then OpenSats, you split 5%. And then Podcast Index, to Adam Curry and David Jones and everything they've done, they get a 1% split. You can add Fountain here, I can add Michael here, I can add Bitcoin Commons. Anybody who has either a pub key for their node or has a Lightning address. So that's very powerful. That's step one. Step two is when you get people on your show, you want to incentivize people to not only give you their time, but you also want to just thank them for giving you their time. So in my latest episode with Bitcoin Q&A, you can see the splits here. I ask people, I give every guest that comes on 5%. I ask them where they want it. Did they want it to themselves or they want it somewhere else? So with Fountain, and you can't do this with the podcaster wallet, this is where the app developers have innovated here. He basically said, I want to give my 5% to OpenSats as well. And then you can see here on the screen, now I've just altered those for this episode. So this doesn't do the whole podcast. This is specific to this episode. And it's an 89-10 split. You guys see it here. I like to think about episodes as like blocks on the blockchain, of course. These episodes live forever. So mind you, 5 years down the road, somebody newbie comes into Bitcoin and wants to check out this episode, Q&A, well, open sats in this example is getting sats. So am I. These things live on forever. They're assets of themselves. I like to think of my episodes as assets. They're important. You spend your time to build these episodes. So that's a really cool way to do splits. Another way that I was talking to Michael about, Kevin also posted this and I kind of fed off of Kevin, was you can get really creative with this. So now, as of about 2 or 3 months ago, I basically decentralized the podcast, meaning why am I going to decide how good it is or what the music should be or what the guest should be or the topic should be or whatever? I hand the mic over to y'all. I hand the mic over to the listeners, right? And then if you're creative and you think my intro music is trash, reach out to me. We'll get a brand new intro music and I'll give you a split, right? So now you're part of the podcast. You think my cover art is trash? Same thing. Come in, I'll give you a split. We talk about it. You think I talk about boring topics? Why don't you throw one my way and I'll give you a split. And that same asset lives forever. So your idea, your creativity now lives for as long as Talking in Bits live, which mind you, it's an RSS feed. So it's living forever, even if I don't make another episode, right? So whoever subscribed to it lives on forever. And in a nutshell, because I want to open it up for some possible questions, like this is the rabbit hole that we're going in, where we can now talk directly to our listeners and they can have an impact on the show, not because I decided what you guys like and want to hear, but because you guys reached out to me and co-opted with me and made the show what it is today and how good it is. And that was never possible before, man.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's an amazing thing. So, I mean, a lot of people were involved. I like to say Adam Curry and Dave Jones because they obviously kind of put the heavy lifting here. But, we know Oscar from Fountain and we know a bunch of other, podcast app developers that are running with this. I mean, there's chapters where you can kind of like segment your podcast into chapters, right? So it's like, oh, well, you don't want to listen to the part about multi-sig wallets? Fantastic. Well, why don't you zoom over to the part that we talk about, Bitcoin Commons, right, or whatever, or something like that. Go ahead.
And then furthermore, unless I'm mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but people can actually listen to your podcast and they can clip different things, and then people can view those clips and tip them in sats, stream sats to the person who clipped it. So it gives you greater visibility, and now people are actually have an incentive, and they're monetizing off of like contributing and expanding your reach because they love your podcast.
So you got you got a marketing team, literally. So like your favorite show, you start clipping some stuff, you start sharing it on Twitter. You're giving your favorite podcaster, me in this example, a lot of public attention. But yeah, correct. They can actually go and give it like a heart. That's how it is on Fountain. And they can give you, the person who decided that this is worth clipping, 10 sats, 100 sats, like whatever it may be. Truly opening the door. I mean, we didn't even talk about Boost yet. Right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I already boosted you while you were talking.
You
got boosted, man. We sent you some sats. And then, I mean, while he's kind of looking at that, he can show you that on the screen here in a second. But I mean, I'm going to hit play on his podcast here, and I'm streaming, what do I have it set to? I'm going to stream 100 sats a minute because I just love Jose and I appreciate him and I love his content. Bitcoin Q&A is cool. Like I could just
remind you guys that Talking in Bits is completely 100% audience funded. What that basically means is that you will never have to sit through no ads while you're listening to Talking in Bits. And the only way we can continue to do that and have been able to do that is with contributions and donations with great listeners.
So he practices what he preaches, right? Absolutely. So now, I didn't listen to a full minute, but he's going to receive 100 sats.
Yeah, you would have to listen for the full minute. But if you see here the example here, a boost, and what a boost basically is it's a Bitcoin, it's a Lightning transaction with a message embedded into it. So obviously you're sending me a message right here. I believe this was Michael a little while ago. Send me 10,000 sats, but if you can see the split working in full effect here. So I only got 8,900 sats, but that's because OpenSats got their 5% without me needing to even reach out to anybody in OpenSats and be able to do that. But as you can see, this is comments here in real time. I can interact with my listeners in real time. I really don't need Twitter. I use Twitter, and we all do because that's where we're all at. But there is a scenario where if your podcast is big enough, everything that happens with your listeners can happen on your podcasting app. And then you can earn sats here. That's something that happens in Fountain here. But you can see anywhere around here, y'all. As you can see, I was listening to a podcast today. Oh, by the way, the earning feature on Fountain is not just for Lightning podcast. If you I've been listening to investment and real estate podcasts and all that, you still earn sats for listening to your favorite podcast as well. The incentive there being is you're going to bring it right back to your favorite podcasters, right? So we're not trying to earn some sats here to basically go run and put it in our cold storage. That's not the point here. The point is to incentivize and keep that ecosystem alive. So Fountain unlocked this, and I keep saying Fountain, but that's because I love using Fountain. I'm sure other podcast apps are doing amazing stuff. Allowed that ability for you to listen to your old favorite podcast, still get sats, and then jump over to a Talking in Bits, jump over to your favorite podcast, and be able to stream them some sats. And if you like shows, if you like your favorite show, like if you've been listening to it a few years, dump that Spotify subscription if you have it, and go support podcasters. A lot of podcasters in this room. Does anybody have a podcast in this room? Podcasters out here? All right. Has anybody ever thought about having a podcast in this room? Do it. Do it. There's a lot of people that are basically, too many Bitcoin podcasts and too many, no. There's always somebody listening because your vision of Bitcoin is completely different than anybody else, or your vision of crocheting, or your vision of whatever it is that you're dope at, is somebody's always going to want to tune in and listen to that. So if you always thought about it before, you didn't do it now, now's the time to do it. And if you're a listener, please stream sats to your favorite show. You could do this through KYC, on-ramps like Cash App. You could just get some sats into a wallet really quick, or you could do this from your node like I like to do. I have a Raspberry Blitz, and I run Zeus. And from my Raspberry Blitz, I like to send sats over to my wallet so that I can stream to my favorite podcasters, because not only am I a creator, but I'm a connoisseur. I love listening to shows. Gives me ideas, gives me creativity, and we need to keep that ecosystem alive so we could say farewell to this legacy system that only champions the ones that have a ton of money and just ruins people like us here that are just trying to get our voices out, and puts that centralization. And never mind you, if you say something that's a no-no on that platform, they'll get you the hell out of here. They'll dump your podcast immediately. Podcast is open source by nature. One last example I like to give, audio reigns supreme. Just like the block size wars, we don't video in this same example. We don't want bigger blocks because we need bigger nodes and bigger computing and bigger RAM to be able to run those bigger blocks. Same thing with media. Video by nature is getting bigger in files, 4K video, 8K video. These things are massive. They're hard for you to get around the world, and if whoever gets it needs a lot of high definition stuff to basically run this stuff. But that audio file, that podcast that could change somebody's life at any point in time, you can send that over for 100 megabytes, something very small. You can fire that over, and you can change their life, and you can motivate them to do something completely fascinating. Let podcasts live forever. Value for value is the way to go. And that's all I got for y'all for now.
Hell yes. Jose, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I actually have, okay, so we're going to do a Q&A now, and so we can walk this mic around. Does anybody have a question? Ask away. Don't be shy.
Yeah. I am going to say, if you're going to ask me about the lightning side of things, we got some smarter people here. I can still kind of hear you.
Yeah, I was wondering, what is the onboarding experience like for Fountain? How easy is it to set up your own, publish your own podcast?
Yeah, if you know, you can't publish the RSS feed, so you got to do that somewhere else, like Transistor, or you could do that on Anchor. Anchor's the easiest on-ramp for a lot of people. But once you have that, it could take 5 minutes to get your podcast from just a typical podcast to a 2.0 podcast. And in that safety example where it said claim your podcast, you would just basically hit that button. You're going to put your email that you use to set up your RSS feed, the RSS feed itself, which you can find anywhere where you set it up. And within seconds, maybe even less than that, you're going to be able to stream some sats. And if you don't have a node, that's perfectly fine, because in Fountain's example, at least, they give you a @Fountain Lightning address, so a deathbed @Fountain. So therefore, that can be your wallet. Now, that's custodial. I know a lot of people in the room understand the differences, so do understand that that's not your wallet. It's technically theirs. So it's preferable that you set up a node and you get it going directly to your node. But if you want to get going as fast as possible and get some sats, it takes minutes in Fountain to answer your question.
Yeah, and additionally, again, unless I'm mistaken, so let's say you can actually boost, you can boost a Safety podcast right now. You can listen to it, you can stream sats, but
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
You can earn sats for listening, but he needs to be able to receive it.
So I was under the impression, I could totally be wrong.
So could I, by the way.
I thought you could boost it, and then whenever he claims, like Fountain would kind of hold that as whenever he claims it, then he gets that. But I could be wrong.
Never attempted that. I think Lightning
No.
guys in
Okay,
here.
he's saying no. I'm full of shit. Okay.
Yeah, I think the way Lightning works is with the key send, or there's technical guys here, so just correct me if I'm wrong. There needs to be a destination. It just can't sit in limbo and wait for the person to say, hey. Similar to like if your node goes down, you're not getting nothing. Your node is down, right? On the contrary, the person who's sending you stats is getting an error message basically saying your node is down. So I don't think that is true. I think you need to have another end.
Hey, feature request though. Feature request.
Yeah, word.
So at this point, let's say you don't have a podcast. Are you even a real Bitcoiner at this point?
100%. Yeah.
So
That's
just-
why.
Well, just for the stream. So Super says, if you don't have a podcast, are you even a real Bitcoiner yet or anymore? Yeah.
I feel like
Real Bitcoiners, they hold their own keys, they run their own nodes, and they host their own.
podcasts.
And that's just part of it.
1000%. And if you don't have one, you should have one after this conversation.
I think the mic's out of range, so whoever has the next question, move forward a little bit.
Working on something like podcasts, audio for a music platform or anything like this, or is that in the works? Is that maybe something on the roadmap for Fountain, or?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Something I've thought about before as well for audiobooks, right? Like that type of example where we can give authors direct value for value. Unfortunately, I'm not savvy enough to make a startup around it, but I talked to Oscar Fountain, founder of Fountain, on one of my previous episodes, and he gave the example with the chapters feature of the value block and being able to add chapters. You could, and some people are doing this, putting their music, their albums as chapters, so each song is a chapter. And conversely, I haven't heard anybody, but an audiobook can be there, technically living on a podcasting app, but you're still listening to the book, you're still listening to the album. So this is already possible, but has anybody actually built a dedicated app to do so? Not that I know of, and I'm bullish on anybody who wants to try that, because that'll be huge.
Good questions.
Great question.
Stand up and shout it. So do you think that RSS being like an open protocol, do you think that that's kind of the secret for how this works? Because I've thought a lot about this for music, because I was a musician for a long time and like grassroots music scene, and it's a huge problem. But then if you were to make a platform that's value music, it would be built around that platform. So you have to get network effects. There's not an open protocol. So do you think that like RSS, or do you need RSS, or can RSS be used for music in a similar way?
I think to decentralize it, RSS feed is the secret sauce, right? Because that makes it so like if that same song or your music is being broadcasted out and some of these apps are like censoring it or shutting it down, well, by nature, the RSS feed could get picked up by any app that's looking for it. So in order to keep it decentralized, yes, I think the RSS feed is the secret sauce. But I do see an arena where you can build an app where, like, if people sign up to the app, and it's kind of like a closed system app where, you pay incentive to the music artist to kind of bring people there, and that's the whole economy's working within the app, then you may not need an RSS feed there because everybody who goes to the app knows exactly what it is that they're going there for. But yeah, if that's the Apple approach, the closed garden approach, as Bitcoiners, we want to stay the hell away from that. So you may not get a lot of traction on building a centralized app, when you can maybe find a better way to get music through RSS and decentralize it and then allow anybody to do anything they want with that music, which is really what value is at the core of its heart. We really want people to decide. We don't want, the gatekeepers or the Spotifys or the companies to decide where the content goes and what it does with it. I also want to see like video, I have the podcast on Bitcoin TV. Shout out to Bitcoin TV. We need to move there, get away from YouTube. But any video apps, I'm curious to see if anybody builds or if it even exists an ability for you to watch it because I do 4K video for my podcast and I work hard on that and I think people would appreciate it. So it'd be nice for them to be able to stream me some sats through a video app like a Bitcoin TV or something like that. That's also something I'm looking out for.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to get into this in the panel soon, but just the opportunity for more freedom, like speech, music, video, audio, whatever it is, like that's speech. And it can't be censored, and the monetization of it can't be censored if you're using Lightning. And like that aside, which that is absolutely profound, like try, that you're not going to be able to send somebody like pennies or fractions of a cent like instantaneously using any bank, or if you were using a centralized service like Spotify, like you're going to get censored. Like you can kind of do it within their walled garden, let's say. Whatever ways of monetization they have.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they could censor the shit out of you. So
Yeah, 1,000%.
yeah.
No pennies streamed with 2.5% Visa fees. Just doesn't
Yeah.
work. It's also
Yeah.
why I'm bullish on Oshi, by the way. Same exact thing. Like,
Yeah.
Save that 2.5%, give it back to the customer, give it back to the person, instead of having to do a minimum of $5 or $10. Not to call anybody out, I was at the Mueller's Farmers Market last week, and I saw a lot of signs that were basically saying, if you pay with a credit card, we're going to charge you 4% more, right? Or the other side of it, if you pay with cash, we'll drop 4%. Bitcoin solves that problem. I think Oshi's already solving that problem, not for nothing. But so similar on this arena. You can give me a penny. If you think talking in bits is worth a penny, I'll take it. It's a vote. It's saying that you listened, and I appreciate it. So good luck doing that anywhere else, right?
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
I appreciate all of you.
Yeah. Yo, Jose, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
This was
Appreciate
awesome. All right. We're going to have the panel coming up next. We're maybe going to take 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to kind of get things set up. Make sure you get your food and drinks, hang out, socialize, talk about value for value. We'll be right back.